Good day and welcome to yet another edition of Game Time with Marco. Thank you for joining us and thank you for your comments on the previous program that we had with you. It was Hilda Passon who was sitting next to me as we discussed a lot of issues involving football. I hope that you enjoyed it and make sure that you give us your comments, your views, your additions and your subtractions. And I can tell you that a lot of you were very happy that for the first time we had a lady, that is a lady talking football. You know, we are trying to get them to the studio to come and record with us. But we're encountering a bit of some challenges which we hope to address very soon. But today, yet another day and another program. With me is an esteemed gentleman in the world of football as well as business. He's a former chairperson of Black Africa as well as a former NFA president as well as a former NPL chairperson, if I may put it that way, Mr. Ranga Haikali. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be invited.
I've always wanted to have you here. I've been struggling to get you, but I understand. You know, you're a businessman. You're very busy, and it's an honor to have you here after such a struggle. But taking a look at it, who is Ranga Haikali?
Ranga Haikali is a young lad from the streets of Quisepmont. That's where I was born, in Walvis Bay, and that's where I grew up. I played football. I participated in football from school level up to club level. And then I joined the liberation struggle, mainly with the student organization NANSO, and later to the trade union movement, starting with the Metal and Allied Namibian Workers Union, and later joining the Federation of Trade Unions, the NUNW. And from there I joined business. So here we are.
Interesting. I didn't know about the liberation struggle part. I think the football part, that's the one that I knew. Take us through that period. How was it in terms of, you know, the sports in that time? How was it difficult or how easy was it, you know, not being allowed to play at certain places with certain, you know, races or demographics?
Yeah, it's a mixture of football at school level and football at club level. Being a leader of Namibia National Students Organization, NANSO, I started off with Blue Waters, traditionally being a Quisepon Blue Waters, 11 Arrows, Explorer 11, Namibia Stain, Superstars were the teams of those years that were playing top flight football in Namibia or in the Rongo region. At that time it was just called the Western region or the Coastal League. And then we crossed over to go and try our luck with 11 Arrows. We made it there. I'm talking of players like Ngeni or Josephat Mvula, Julius Shivute, or Sono as he's called. And when the big players like Brito Shipanga, then Koko Mwatunga came for school holidays, we, the younger boys, were told to go and catch the balls at the back, and we wanted to play football. So the two clubs, 11 Arrows and Blue Waters, were playing next to one or training next to one another. And we just jumped the short fence to try our luck. 11 Arrows invited or accepted us gladly, asked for our ID photos, and then they registered us, and that was history. But it was also during the time when Walvis Bay was illegally seen as part of South Africa.
Yes.
We were at school, we were writing the Cape education system. And as student leaders, we protested against the 1987, 1988 building of military bases near schools, especially in the northern areas. And being student leaders, we were arrested under the security legislations. We were incarcerated 90 days without trial. And then later we were fined not to move in groups of more than 2 people. In football, being a team of 11 players on the field, I was effectively banned from playing or training or participating in football. I remember, I think the JPS final of 1988, we were in jail and we could not train, we could not play, and we were also restricted not to leave the enclave of Walvis Bay. So I started running to keep myself fit, marathons over the period, or not participating in marathons, but running along the coast and in the sand dunes, just to keep myself active and fit, and having fishing companies along the jetties in Walvis Bay. I started jumping into the fish factories and started teaching and creating awareness of workers' rights in terms of joining trade unions. So I later became a trade union organizer, organizing the trade unions under the NUNW and affiliates. That was NAFO mainly in the fishing industry, but I was appointed to organize the Metal and Allied Namibian Workers Union. So I did that until they made me a regional organizer and regional coordinator. I later moved to the head office in Windhoek, and then I became the national organizing and education coordinator of the NUNW. Later appointed as deputy secretary general of the NUNW. Honorable Bernard Esser was then the secretary general by then. And then when he left, a number of trade union leaders like the late John Pandeni, the late Peter Ilonga, Ben Ulenga, and many others, after Namibia's independence, went to join parliament under SWAPO. So I was acting in those positions. So I don't know whether acting has been my trump card to get up to the top positions until I became the Secretary General, the youngest Secretary General of a trade union movement, first in Africa and also in the world. Wow. By my age, I'm saying until I just saw that I've reached the top level, there is no more room for expansion. I had many opportunities to join politics, but
that's what I was going to ask. That
yeah.
So did you ever consider, going into parliament, joining politics, and becoming a full-time politician with such a CV that you just given us?
Opportunities and requests did came by, but I always had a business mind. I started as a small businessman in my own right at school, organizing football tournaments, selling and trading at school. But I always had a passion for business. So it was also at that time when the National Union of Namibian Workers took a specific resolutions to build the investment arm of the trade unions. So I implemented that resolution by creating Labor Investment Holding, or LIH as it's known by abbreviation. And it was also during the time when the old TCL mines in Chumeb went into liquidation. There was a strike. We met with the management, the local management here, not the Goldfield management in South Africa. And after that devastating strike, the government, under the leadership of our founding president, made it clear that it is high time for Namibians to start owing our natural resources. In this case, it was mainly copper. So together with management, we put up Ongopolo Mining and Processing Limited, of which I was the chairman, and we took over the old mines. While there, I created many other businesses for the trade union movement, like Tuafika Fishing, which was a joint venture with another private company, NAMSOF, to get into the fishing industry, and life started moving on. I was then requested by government to be part of the trio of leaders to take over management of Air Namibia at that time. So the late advocate Vekwi Rukoro was the chairperson of the board of Air Namibia at that stage. So myself, Mr. Gernot Lieder, who was appointed as the MD for Air Namibia, and Andre Compion were appointed as the three top management to try and revive and turn around
the fortunes of
Air Namibia, to get rid of or to dispose of the biggest liability then, which was the Airbus 787 Combi, which was flying between Windhoek and Frankfurt. That drained a lot of resources and revenue from Air Namibia. Germany was our main destination. Then we later add on the London Heathrow Airport, where the airplane was going via Frankfurt and then over to Heathrow and then come back. But the liabilities of maintaining and paying off the debt of that combi, for instance, what I mean by combi is both passengers and cargo. And the cargo was going mainly to Spain, which is fresh fish. But it went to Germany, and from Germany it went by truck to Spain, or to Vigo in Spain, which was bleeding because the road transport leg take our fish to Spain was the draining part. But it later also became a political battle, unfortunately also mainly from not only the trade unions in Air Namibia, Natal in this case, but also the leadership of the trade union also started seeing this as a privatization move. So the campaign was not around the idea of turning around Air Namibia. It was seen that its privatization, and a leader of a trade union is at the forefront of this, being in Air Namibia. I was responsible for both finance, HR, and commercial. It just became too much, and I thought maybe if I am the target of my own colleague to turn around an airline that was draining the state coffers or the state resources, let me move. And then I moved to a private company, Namfish, which was already in the fishing sector. I became the general manager responsible for about 18 joint ventures in the fishing industry. If you recall, the Ministry of Fisheries promoted the
joint ventures,
between existing companies and upcoming companies in the fishing industry. And I also applied for an affirmative action loan scheme. I got a farm in 2002, so I went into farming. After Ongopolo, we bought with our own resources the mining EPLs for cement. So me and a few other individuals like Andre Netling then started Orongo mining, Orongo cement. We went into joint venture with Schwenk Cement from Germany. That's Orongo cement that is existing today. We were later, I won't say forced, but they use a clause in the agreement where they had a call option on the shares of individuals or the minority shareholders being Namibians. So they bought us out. I went into many other private ventures, property development, Safland we created with a colleague. And then I invested as part of the empowerment group into First Rand Namibia. Then it was only known as FNB, as an individual or a private individual. I moved away long back then from LIH to go into to private business, and I created and bought shares in many other entities or companies. That's the businessman I am now.
Okay. Yeah. Now, obviously, we'll talk a lot about football today. When did the football bug bite you?
Sure, football back came from my younger days as a young school-going learner, playing football, but not really ownership. But if you look at the history of Namibian football, there was a call and a strategy to professionalize Namibian football.
Yes.
So I was approached by Black Africa Football Club to go in as an investor, and we created Black Africa Football Club Pty Limited, which I unfortunately owned 100% as the sole investor. So I invested in Black Africa as a club owner then, and having said that, we try to semi-professionalize the club in the management and the administration and the strategy. You will recall that we won 4 seasons consecutively as Namibian football champ. The brand Black Africa had a lot of value that were not uncapped or that were not exploited fully. And Black Africa was traditionally known as the Cup Kings, both the league and cups. And I think with the executive committee of Black Africa, we worked very well to achieve this strategy that we have adopted, and it worked very well for the clubs. And we were not only exporters of talent, and at that stage then, you will know that many of the former Black Africa players, or football players, were becoming coaches, and we had 8 top flight football club coaches coming
From Black Africa.
So we tried to plow back, but I said it many a times and I'm repeating it. It does not help for one club to professionalize, whereas the rest of the clubs
are still
lagging behind. And I would mention also not only Black Africa, but the strategy around African Stars, which also tried to do that. We had other clubs that were also privately owned, not only Black Africa and African Stars. We had Orlando Pirates, we had 11 Arrows, we had Blue Waters. But then the politics in football also came in, where supporters and founders of some of these clubs were basically advancing a different agenda of saying these clubs belongs to communities. It's also a known fact that many of the clubs were formed around ethnic lines. If you look at Blue Waters, you look at Tigers Football Club, you look at Benfica, you look at Oshakati City, you look at Blue Boys. They are all blue and white in color, but they are also assigned to the Ovambo tribe.
Yes.
You look at African Stars, you look at Black Africa again, and you look at Orlando Pirates, you look at Chelsea, you look at BMC,
Liverpool,
Pubs, Liverpool in Okahanja then, and others. They were all along tribal or ethnic groups, where they have created a lot of good players, but the tribal or the ethnic leg or the link of the clubs have changed over the years. Where clubs started to look at players of other ethnic groups, and I think that is the right way to go. But the names of the clubs, the regions where they are coming from, the bulk of the players that were playing for that club,
even the administration,
the leadership and so on, did not embrace this particular change that we wanted to advance in Namibian football. It will take a long way. Now, I had discussions with some of the leaders before I was in the leadership, where we said, look at England, you look at Manchester, it's linked to the district where they are.
Yes.
You look at Liverpool, you look at Tottenham, you look at
Newcastle, Sunderland.
Yeah, but then you go to our next door neighbors, Angola. Though the clubs were of a specific area, government came in and they linked them to their parastatals. That's from a financing point of view, where parastatals like Sonangol and many others were basically not owning but financing these clubs.
As part of their corporate
social responsibilities.
Yes.
And it did good for those clubs to develop football in Angola. And we had a strategy where we wanted to approach our parastatals. You look at the NAM Powers, you look at the NAM Waters, you look at the NAM Port, where some of these parastatals could be linked to a particular club.
Yes.
And we also had to embrace the clubs are based in a certain region. Now, if you have got a situation where 8 on average of the top flight football clubs are Windhoek based, how do you develop talent in a region like Unene
Or Zambezi.
or Zambezi?
Yeah.
So we lack that representation of football clubs from all 14 regions of Namibia, where a player will develop, he or she will see themselves as growing in terms of football, so they will move to the capital city to play for one of the football clubs in Windhoek.
And based on their tribe.
And based on their tribe.
So if somebody comes from the south, they come to Windhoek,
Yeah.
they are Nama, Tamara speaking, they will either go to Black
Orlando
Africa
Pirates
or
Orlando Pirates.
Yeah.
So you have Ochogonjupa region or Maheke region, where when they come to Windhoek, they will either play for African Stars and so on. So it was self-defeating in terms of having that regional development. If you look at the beta, I won't say the top stadiums, but I will say beta stadiums in terms of infrastructure for football. Some of the regions just do not have. You have got a very good club in the south from Karasberg playing in the top flight football, but they don't have a proper stadium where they can play their league games. For instance, in Karasberg they have to
go to
Keetmanshoop. So some of this infrastructural development were also hampered because the concentration of clubs and the concentration of football players was in Windhoek or other bigger towns. So that in itself will defeat that purpose of regional spread of talent. And traditionally, it's a fact that is well known. Many of the rural areas have developed the best players or footballers that we know in this country.
Yeah. You spoke a lot, and those are some of the things that we have to talk to speak about. Now, you spoke about Black Africa. I'm glad you brought it up. Becoming the sole investor and the chairperson of the club at that time. How did it feel, and what was your idea with Black Africa?
The idea was to professionalize Black Africa, and I think to a great extent we have achieved that goal.
Yeah.
But then the pressure started coming up where the communities and the club supporters felt it is their club. But the financing part
had to fall on you.
Had to fall on me. I didn't have any problem. I offered them 50% shareholding, but with all due respect, it's not all the supporters who will have the financial means to finance the club. So I took it upon myself as a responsibility to use my personal resources to keep on funding the club. But politics also became too much at that stage. But overall, there was good cooperation. But then again, ownership of football clubs and participating in the leadership of the football administration, in this case the NPL then, and then the Namibia Football Association, became an issue where you cannot be seen as a NFA president, for example, owning
a club. Yeah.
So they started then pressurizing that I should relinquish one of the two.
Yes.
And resorting to supporters' ownership of the club then came in. So we agreed to sign, we agreed on the separation agreement and handover, which was done. The unfortunate part, the financing part of financing the club also fell through because there was no financial backing for Black Africa. And I'm not saying that is the reason why a great club like Black Africa today is relegated, but they just did not have the league sponsorship.
Yes.
Whether it's the NPL or the NPFL, also played a part in that, because at national level, the Namibia Football Association said the financing of the league or sponsorship of the league came with certain restrictions, where the league sponsor or the main sponsor insisted on branding on the chest. So to a certain extent, club sponsorship suffered, because who wants to be
on the side,
or at the back, where most of the players, when they are playing a game, you take their pictures from the front.
Yes.
So it to a certain extent limited clubs to get private sponsorship. Now, you know, there was penalties also assigned.
If you get a private sponsor that
if
you put
get
on the
a
chest.
private sponsor. FNB at that time, I think, sponsored 5 or 6 clubs.
Yes.
It was Black Africa, it was Orlando Pirates, it was 11 Arrows, and 3 or 4 others that were sponsored. Then the grant that went from the main sponsor of the league
was
withdrawn because these people have got private clubs. So it was a fight between the league sponsors or the private companies. I think there was a consortium of MTC, FNB,
and breweries,
and the Namibia Breweries, whereas the Namibia Breweries withdraw from that sponsorship and then started sponsoring the NFA or the national team, the Brave Warriors, and MTC continued with the NPL, the league, and FNB was sponsoring these 5 or 6 clubs, but they could not get monthly grants. So the monthly grant to clubs became the main focus, because running a club and honoring your league commitments became a challenge. And if this grant is withdrawn,
it becomes
you
tough.
have, fortunately, clubs like Black Africa keep their loyalties with FNB. So to a certain extent that grant was replaced. But what about the other clubs? And it's really a lot of money to honor your weekend fixtures or obligations, players' accommodations, the transport, the food. And then we introduce, I won't call it a salary, but an allowance for players in all the clubs that played. So the players started earning an allowance, where some others, because of the significance of that assistance, felt it as a salary. And some clubs were only paying for the 10 months when the league was played. Clubs like Black Africa paid for the whole year, the 12 months. But it also became lesser and lesser, because more clubs, if you know, there were 16 clubs in the NPL at that stage, and the cake just became too small to share with all the clubs. The example I will take, for instance, is the league takings, or the winning is 1 million per year, and you are not assured or guaranteed that
of winning it.
Yeah, and on average, a club like Black Africa would spend around 2.8 million a year just to honor everything that the club has to do.
And that includes international matches like your Champions League.
Everything. And you are not assured or guaranteed of the 1 million. Black Africa, for instance, put in a contract that every winning, I'm talking about the prize money now, have to be shared, or 50% thereof have to be shared
amongst the players.
Which was great to encourage talent and great players to come to Black Africa.
But business-wise, it didn't make sense.
Business-wise, it did not make sense because to honor your 2.8 million a year, you give of the 1 million if you win it.
You give 500,000.
500,000 to the players. How will you pay the salaries of the others? And it was not a matter of the club owner taking anything from that victory. Anything from that 1 million that you win. If you win it, it was reinvesting. And I, for instance, started preaching the issue of sustainability of football, so that we adjust our policies and our contract in such a way that the team can still continue surviving financially, instead of just waiting for the owners or the whatever to put, because the grant was just not even covering 30% of our yearly expenses. So those are the intricacies where we wanted to professionalize football. We wanted to make it sustainable. If a club like Black Africa, for instance, win the league and they have to participate in the Champions League, the initial participation in the Champions League does not come with any assistance, for instance, from the NFA, neither from CAF. It's only if you go and advance to the other stages will you. We played Kaiser Chiefs in one of the qualifying matches, and it was a lot of money that we had to expend to go and play in South Africa, come and play in Namibia. We unfortunately did not make it, but we spent that money.
How much roughly did you spend for those two matches?
For those two matches, it was over 1.6 million.
Now that's just two matches.
Just two matches.
Not the whole season.
Not the whole season.
Then comes the whole season, you still need to spend 2.8.
Yes.
So that will take you roughly to 5 million.
It's like that when we played Kaiser Chiefs in Joburg, they will take care of our accommodation. Fortunately, they had got sponsors, both of Sun International Hotel, where they hosted us, the F&B Stadium where they are playing, and the local transport was provided by SAFA. I mean, the bus for the players and the officials, the local. When they came, we had to meet their standard. We had to host and pay for the Windhoek County Club and Resort, where we accommodated them.
Get them the buses.
Get them the buses, get them all those things, without any assistance from the league, without any assistance from the sponsors, the NFA or the sponsors. So somebody had to cough up and meet these international standards of hosting international clubs coming to play against you. It just became unsustainable.
But with all that said, you know, the money that you are talking about, like for that season alone, I'm sure you spent over 5 million in the club, and you still kept going there. What was pushing you to go? I mean,
is the love for the game and hoping that
things will change.
Things will change. Sponsorship will come. And I'm saying this with all due respect. A sponsor like MTC put a lot of their money into football.
Yeah.
They brought in certain conditions that were not sustainable for football in the country, and they did not leave or open room for other sponsors to also come, or for any sponsor to
help
come,
them, sort of, yeah.
To help them. They had to play second fiddle in terms of exposure. So it also became an inhibiting fact for many of other sponsors or companies to come in and put their money into football.
Now, with what is happening in Black Africa right now, what are your thoughts around that? You know, we saw last year and early this year, there was a lot of noise surrounding Black Africa. There were court cases. I think the court case was concluded in March this year. What are your views on that? The supporters here, they are fighting. There's a management that is accused of having stolen the club, and then there's the other management who have sat back and said, look, we are going to let you do whatever you want to do, and whatever happens there, it happens there.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate event or events that took place with Black Africa.
Yeah.
But it still comes down to ownership of the club. The people who are financing the club, professionalizing the club, run it as a business, or is it the supporters? And then again, leadership. There was a lot of infighting, and I'm not going to take sides on say who was right or who was wrong. The court also took a decision in that, but it would have been a better option if these people or the groups came together in the interest of the club and find an amicable solution how to run the club.
Did they approach you during that fight? Were you approached either by either side or the two sides, or maybe the elders just saying, look, the club is going through this, with your history with the club, can't you try and help in terms of trying to
I would say
kill this fire?
individuals have approached me, and I've always been on the stance that people should come together, unify, and work together. But I could not get involved, either in terms of ownership or mediation or whatever. And I'm saying this with all due respect. There was also a lot of egos. Being former players, being founders of the club, being staunch supporters, and that led to the division amongst the different groups of leadership, which is a really very sad and unfortunate situation. And I think we could also learn from the history. Many clubs that were in the top flight football, once you get relegated, it becomes almost impossible. Respectfully, I'm talking about clubs like Chiefs Santos, Oshakati City, the Liverpool, Grootfontein, Chelsea, Explorer 11,
yes.
Namibia Football, Superstars. It becomes almost impossible for you to gain back there. I'm talking about Robert Chandis in Corregas, Chiefs Santos, I'm talking about Paps in Ucho, and many other clubs. That history should have been a learning curve for the leadership that are fighting to basically put their differences aside and unify. And I'm not saying Black Africa is not coming back. It's not yet too late. But if people put their egos together and work hard to gain promotion from the first division into the top flight football, the NPFL, it is still doable. It's not too late. But people should put their differences aside.
Yeah, and it's very true, because we saw last season actually, which ended early this year, that Black Africa survived in the last 2 weekends of the league. And when you're telling us about this history of all these clubs, what is it that now, why don't we learn from that? Why do you think our administrators or our club owners or everybody involved in football doesn't learn from that to say, look, this club went through this direction, look at where they are. Why don't they learn from that?
Yeah, it's difficult to answer your questions. I think that history, or that piece of history is a good eye-opener. It's not yet too late. All I can plead is for the club owners to put their differences aside.
And with this question, I'm not only referring to Black Africa. I mean, we have seen, like you mentioned, all these other clubs. As recent as 11 Arrows, they went down there. It's difficult for them to come up. We're talking about Chiefs Santos. They came back to the Premier League. They couldn't last a season. They had to go back down. And many other clubs, Rundu Chiefs, are also struggling to come up.
It's a known fact, for you to be able to survive and get promoted, you need good players. You need good coaches that will have to be paid. It always will and have a financial liability to be able to achieve those objectives. Because which of the good players
would want to go and play in the first division?
Will want to go and play in the first division. So you can tap from your development clubs. Only a few of the top flight clubs or top flight league clubs have got development teams. 11 Arrows have got young 11. Blue Waters have got young birds. The other clubs have got what they call feeder teams. You need to develop young talent that can go and play for your club so that you can be promoted
from the
first division to go up to that. But even the first division, and the second division need sponsors to make those leagues highly competitive.
Let's shift gears. NPL. You were with Black Africa, you were the chairperson, you would sit in the management or in the NPL executive meetings. At one point, I think you were chairperson of NPL. I stand to be corrected.
No. I was just an executive.
An executive. What happened the year football completely stopped? When we lost the MTC sponsorship, when MTC said, give us a budget and tell us who's going to, we are willing to give you so much, tell us who's going to top up on this. What happened during that time?
It was a mixture of events. Remember, there was a roadmap that was adopted by NFA.
The Windhoek Declaration.
The Windhoek Declaration. For our population, for the size of the country, it was agreed to reduce the number of clubs in the top flight football from 16 to 12. Now the issue of relegation, when some clubs got relegated, it's a known fact which clubs refuse to be relegated because they went into the league to play as 16 clubs. So there was completely a hesitance for the clubs to adopt the reduction of the number of clubs from 16 to 12.
Why was that?
Selfish interest, and some clubs that felt that once you get relegated, it will be almost impossible
to come back.
Some clubs went to the first division or got relegated to the first division without the first division having a sponsor, without the first division playing any league. And they had these weekend tournaments, maybe one weekend or 2 weekends, where you compete against the clubs that have been promoted from second division to first division and those that were relegated from NPL to
first division.
So it was like a tournament that you play over a weekend to gain promotion to go to there. Some clubs refused to be relegated because they said, where are you relegating me to if there is no competitive league
down below
us at the first division? So they had facts, but lack of sponsorship in all the leagues and development in that also played their role.
But with football being the #1 sport in the country, and I say that without any fear of contradiction, that football is the #1 sport in the country. Why is it so difficult? Why was it so difficult at that time, even up to now, to get sponsorship compared to other sports, like, for example, your rugby, your cricket, those two, athletics? They can easily get all this sponsorship and run their programs. But with football, it's always a problem.
Yeah, it's selfish interest, leadership struggle, the structure of our Namibia Football Association. You have the top flight football, whether it's NPL then and now NPFL, which is the top flight football, and they have got sponsorship running, but you have regional chairpersons calling the shots in terms of the number of votes at the Namibia Football Association. And you have got a number of leaders, and I'm not talking about chairpersons only, but football administrators and others who want to live off football instead of putting their skills into football to develop football.
By live off, you mean earning a salary from football?
Either earning a salary or being appointed to go on this or that trip for the national team. And I will mention an example. The priority of the executive, now called council, of the NFA, to attend a meeting and apply their minds and make decisions in the best interest of football is not the priority. The priority is the S&T you earn, the hotel where you are coming to sleep. The further you come from, you get an S&T at a certain rate. So it became a source of income. So and then they fight. Then COVID came in. We could not play football because of the lockdown. We had to take certain decisions, and people refused to attend virtual meetings because they want to earn that income that they get per kilometer to come and attend a meeting.
So they would rather come to the office?
They would rather come to the office. You have got a meeting, a normal meeting that should take 4, 5, 6 hours in a day will start from 8 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock, close to midnight, where people are just fighting and whatever. And some meetings were held over 2 days, a Saturday and a Sunday, and the same people have to travel back.
And they still have to earn S&T for those 2 days?
Yes, instead of having a sitting fee or attendance, and we have got a virtual meeting. But the interest is not about football, it's how much I can get out of football.
Okay, we'll come to that, because I understand people have bought laptops to sit at home and have those virtual meetings. Now, when they are refusing, it does not make sense to me that we gave you this gadget for you to use at home, to join us for a meeting, but you don't want you still want to come.
I can mention examples where people logged on. We had the attendance registered that they are logging on. We switch off the camera so that the
internet is faster.
The internet is faster. And then they go and do other things. When you pose a pertinent question to a specific individual, they are on mute, they are not answering. and I'm saying this with all due respect, where the assistance, financial assistance from government to football or to NFA was restricted only to the Brave Warriors. It was minimal, and you had a sponsor like the breweries, Tafellager sponsorship for the Brave Warriors. Then you had the situation where our stadiums were not fit to play our matches locally, so you had to spend more and more money.
Playing outside.
So close to 100% of the cost or operational cost for the NFA depends from the FIFA grant.
And that's not enough.
It's definitely not enough.
Yeah. All right, so now the NPL, we're still talking about the NPL. That's
NPLF now.
Now it's NPLF, yes.
Yes.
But while we're still there, because we'll come to the NPLF, with the NPL now, that happens, and then we start having divisions or shifts amongst the clubs. There are some clubs who are saying, let's do this, and the other clubs are saying, let's do this. Did that help the situation, or it wasn't the situation?
It did not help. It split the agendas of the leadership of football. There is no embracement of unity in diversity. It became almost personal, and you continuously just have infightings and divisions, and it's definitely not going to be in the interest of football then, now, and in the future.
Okay, so then now let's fast forward. Then the FIFA comes in, removes the executive committee, which was led by President Franz Mbidi then, and puts in a normalization committee, which was led by Hilda Passan Namujebo. And then the elections come. You are elected as president. Take us through that journey. How did you decide, or why did you decide to run for the presidency?
You will recall that I stand for elections as NFA president. Before.
Yes.
In 2010, in 2014, until I was elected after the normalization committee, which came in. I stood against Mr. John Muñoz. I lost. I stood against Mr. Franz Mbidi. I lost. Then normalization
did you
committee.
lose the Mbidi one? Did you lose, or your team walked away? Your supporters walked out of the elections because of some things that were not sitting right with you. I think Erong was told they are not in good standing, they could not vote, and other people were also, there was sort of some chess and politics being played.
I see a lot of politics being played in terms of that. You recall that earlier I mentioned that the NFA is effectively run by
The regions.
The regions or the regional chairpersons. If you look at the number of votes, the combination of votes, the Namibia Premier League then and now MPFL have got lesser votes. And leadership vision at the NFA and at the top flight football and control and the independence of the league from the NFA comes into being. All those factors will result into what I termed as losses where I lost. Obviously there were grievances, but we said in the best of interest, let us accept defeat or let me accept defeat
and move forward.
And move forward. Because football was not the winner.
But individuals were.
Individuals were. So I came in, the same thing happened. But remember, there were two normalization committees. Namibia was banned, a normalization committee came in, then another normalization came in, and we were on the verge of being banned by FIFA as a country. It would have been disastrous. But still, we are not learning from our recent past in terms of what is happening.
What is currently happening?
Yeah, what is currently happening is what happened also in the past. But more and more is sustainability, depending on FIFA as the main funder for all your operations. You are not able to have unity so that you could attract sponsors not only at the league basis, but also in the administration of football, where politics play a big role. I don't want to see in my lifetime a situation where FIFA will come and ban Namibia completely for football. But you look at countries like Kenya, you look at countries like Egypt, you look at countries like Zimbabwe, where FIFA ban actually brought these leaders to realize that if we don't get our acts together, we will certainly suffer as a country. And I'm praying that that will never happen. Also, historical liabilities, all the money that comes from FIFA, get to pay historical debts. Whereas we don't apply financial discipline to reduce that liability of our debts, it will hamstring our operation as a country to progress further. And I just hope the leaders will realize this, and we bring in accountability, we bring in transparency, and we bring in financial discipline to be able to run and operate football in Namibia.
So, still talking about before the elections, now during the elections, there were accusations that were flying around in your direction, that you actually bribed the regions to vote for you. Now that we have you here, it's probably time you can clarify on that and cancel that.
I'm laughing this off because that is absolute nonsense. As a businessman, as a Namibian, I was, for instance, asked to help a region like Oshana because they were running their operations from a shack. It was falling apart. Leaders in those regions approached me where I can help. I said, okay, fine. I will buy the bricks, I will buy the cement, and I will buy all the equipment because they had land available just to build their regional office. I can prove, even up to now, I paid it from my own resources, and there was no Congress coming. It was after I have already been elected to just help. And I can tell you, individuals, regions, clubs, and I'm not talking about Black Africa, I'm talking about other clubs, are always asking me for financial assistance. I've been helping wherever I could. If that has to be termed as bribe, I'm so sorry. I've never paid a single cent to anybody to buy a vote.
They termed it brown envelopes. Apparently, the regional chairpersons were given envelopes with $20,000 each. Even the amounts were mentioned that they were given those monies at your farm.
No.
Prior to the Congress.
No.
Which then led to your election.
No. I was asked to host at my farm a number of
regional
leaders to come.
Yes.
I hosted them out of my own pocket in terms of accommodation, the food and whatever. But I've never given a single cent.
Okay.
Whether from my own pockets or from whatever resources, to buy any votes.
Now, when you went into NFA office now, you are the president, you have been elected. What were your expectations when you went in there?
You remember we changed a few policies. We made a commitment to transparency. We made a declaration as to how things will be run. I didn't want to just sit there as a ceremonial president.
Yes.
I wanted to clean the administration at NFA. And that did not sit well with some or many of the leaders. And that was seen, and I've mentioned earlier, there are people who want to live off football. And there are those that want to lead football to develop football.
So that was seen as cutting off the hands of those?
Yes. There are other accusations that were leveled against me that I gained financially by offering one of my companies.
Yeah, I was going to come to that actually.
Yeah.
But for now, I just want us to focus on your expectations at NFA and the problems or the issues that you found there. How big were they at NFA? Because we are talking about the debt, for example. How big was that debt when you found it there? And how difficult was it for you guys to pay it off with the little resources that you're getting from government, from FIFA, and from maybe the sponsors here and there?
If I recall, the normalization committee under the leadership of Ms. Hilda Basona Munjebo, when they came in, their main task was to reduce
the deficit
and
the debt, yeah,
with the assistance of FIFA. They have done a great job. They have reduced that debt significantly. To a certain extent where budget discipline had to be implemented, yes, or applied, where some of the money from the Ministry of Youth and Sports or from government had to be returned because costs have been cut or the budget have been inflated to fund other projects that are non-related to that specific task. We had historical debts of, for instance, the Safari Hotel, the Window Country Club, where some of these creditors were insisting you pay cash or you pay substantially off some of the debts before we allow you to make use of our services.
Yeah.
You will also recall that we chartered certain private airlines for us to be able to honor our fixtures. You fly via Europe to come and play your obligations in North or Central Africa. Some of these logistical problems existed then.
Before you guys came in.
You go and play your games in South Africa, your home games in South Africa. From there, you also have preparations for the national team where they go to South Africa to prepare for a specific fixture of the national team. All of this is a liability to football in the country. So when we wanted to cut this cost, and I'm not saying it's a significant cutting, but you also had players appearances fees, winning bonuses. They even paid winning bonuses for draw matches. You have officials getting winning bonuses, from medics to assistant coaches, the coaches.
So that,
and not only the players. Some of these policies and principles, when you want to cut this unnecessary cost, which is putting a lot of pressure on your budget, you
are on a collision course.
You are on a collision course with some of those people that want to live off football. We had court cases that were pending at the labor court, where people claimed certain qualifying bonuses and all other bonuses. And I'm not saying people should not be compensated for whatever work they are doing, or players for playing matches, but it's just unsustainable and it becomes a burden. So you become an enemy of your own people that you are supposed to be working together, and that's the unfortunate part.
And for women's football, how difficult was it for you guys to also sort of streamline it with the operations?
I think a policy was to equalize the treatment of women football with men football. And I'm saying this, equality is a vision that I'm embarrassing, but it should be over time, gradually. However, women football were always a back, what you call it, was not a priority for
the previous
administrations. And it really became.
So it sent them back.
Yeah, it sent them back, but it became a liability because we wanted to equalize everything overnight. Yeah.
So when you're in the office now, the first few months, I think the honeymoon months, as they call them, they were fine. And then problems started surfacing, especially in the media, who would hear of all these things, and you get this information. Most of the information would actually come from the executive committee. That, hey, we had a meeting when, and there were fireworks. And this one were fighting. Those problems started coming out now into the media, and we started reading about them, we started writing about them, and it led to a situation whereby you had to suspend the SG for some things that did not gone well. And the SG in turn also called a meeting without your presence, and you were also suspended. And it became sort of a chaos at NFA. What happened there?
I think it led to certain court procedures for which a court decision was made. It was appealed. The decisions were upheld. I see that it's something of the past. We could have learned
from that.
Unfortunately, we didn't. You had a situation where the vice president, or the first vice president, was fighting. There was a split of 50-50 in the executive committee. And this led to the situation where the executive was completely removed.
I mean, having won the election, I think it was 18 votes to 2.
Yes.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden, the same people that put you into office are turning against you. What led to that? Besides the vice president's issue, what actually led to that?
I think, and I've mentioned it, and I'm gonna mention it, you have dark forces trying to run and control football. You have the likes of progressive forces, which is well known. FIFA knows it, everybody knows it, but nobody's doing anything about it. But it boils down to the control of the regional chairpersons.
By the progressive forces.
By the progressive forces. And that will cause a disaster to the development of Namibian football going forward. But then I'm also saying I had nothing to gain. I had more to give to football. But it's a chapter that I have closed. I have accepted that.
Yeah.
Instead of fighting for positions where those that are supposed to be a team with you
Are fighting you.
are fighting you. I just hope with the current executive or the council as it's called, some of those fights will not resurface again because it will be devastating to football. But we have moved on as individuals.
The reason I asked you this is because, like you said, there are people who came to football to
Earn a living.
eat, yes, to earn a living from football. There were also there were a lot of accusations, and I'll keep bringing them up. There were accusations that, for example, you were paying rent for some of those people or bonds. For the people that were in the regions or in football, and they'd helped you, come into NFA. Apparently, you're paying their rents, their bonds, or their car payments, or whatever. They would come to you and say, Mr. President, my family has no food. Please help me with a small amount here to go and buy food. Maybe you take 2,000 or 3,000 and give them, and they buy groceries and so on and so forth. Somebody would come to you and say, I'm behind 2 months with my bond. Can you help me here? You give them maybe 10,000 to cover up. Are those accusations true?
There is absolute, no, that is absolute nonsense. But I will admit,
Yes.
I get request to pay a 400 to help somebody with his car problems and all that. The unfortunate part, and I will regret that for the
Rest of your life.
for the rest of my life, where people are coming, give me this, I want to buy airtime, I want to pay for this and this. You help them without any conditions attached, and it's seen really as a bribe. And I'm not getting this only from football leaders. I'm getting this from friends, from family. As a businessman, you say, okay, this is going too far. Yes, I can help, but it's later turned out to be a bribe. That's unfortunate. But you talk of 10,000. I've never assisted somebody more than 1,000 or 2,000 where somebody is really trying to help. My electricity is down or my car parts, I need to buy this. I did it to help,
From the
but
bottom of your
not
heart.
to buy or bribe somebody. And that's the unfortunate part of us. I won't say Africans, but as Namibians, to a certain extent as Africans.
Yeah.
You ask somebody to help you, tomorrow it might turn out to be a bribe.
Or if tomorrow he can't help you, then you use that against them to say, okay.
Yeah, I've never used anything against them for helping them, but it's requests that are coming. I thought it's genuine request. It was never bribes. There were never congresses or events coming to that.
And your relationship with the SG, Franco Cosmos, it started off very well, and it deteriorated as time went on.
Let me give you a perspective.
Yes.
During the time of the
Normalization Committee.
the Namibia Premier League,
Yes.
there was a congress that was called
By the NPL.
by the NPL. And then through the process, the NFA, led by Secretary General Barry Rukoro and Franz Bidi, was in the leadership then. Then the restructuring of the NPL through, I think they call it, I don't know, ad hoc committee.
Yes.
Was appointed, where that ad hoc committee to run the league was put in place. I was approached by several individuals. I refused because it will be used as a political gimmick that I'm trying to take over NFA, where I've lost earlier
Twice.
to Mr. John Winyo and then that time to
Franz Bidi.
But the aim was to restructure the NPL so that football could start playing again, because you mentioned that there were seasons where no league was playing.
Yes, yes, completely.
I said, the moment I feature as the leader of that ad hoc committee, I will get fights from NFA. That time, Mr. Franco Cosmos was, I think, the chairperson of the Blue Waters Executive.
Yes.
I said, why don't you approach Franco? I can speak to him and see whether he was willing to play that
role.
But those people who approached me insisted, can I also just assist as a deputy to Franco? I hesitantly agreed. And when I agreed, NFA override that decision of the ad hoc committee to restructure
the NPL.
The NPL.
Yeah.
Then they created another committee, I think, under the leadership of one of their executive committee. The gentleman who was working at the Ministry of Youth and Sport, to head that committee.
Yeah.
And the ad hoc committee that was elected by the NPL was then incorporated into that committee. We had a meeting at NFA where I said, if we are not good enough to be in an ad hoc committee, why do you want the entire ad hoc committee to be incorporated under your committee as NFA?
So definitely you want to control the things, yeah.
I refuse. They begged me and said, no, you are seeing this as, or you are seeing this wrong. It was not the intention.
So that ad hoc committee was led by Roger Gambatuka, okay. And
the whole strategy and the whole policy that we want to start football was taken over by the NFA under that committee. And when that committee achieves its aim and objective to restart football restarted. Then the fight started coming in. He wants to use that as a footstep for NFA presidency. Then the fight started. So it was more those political games that were played. But my aim as an individual was to see football starting instead of having those long periods where no football was played. And that's the unfortunate part.
So that's where the problems between you and the SG also started?
No, remember, NFA then was suspended by FIFA.
Yeah.
Then the normalization committee came in. Fortunately or unfortunately, under Ms. Hilda Basson, Franco Cosmos was playing the SG role in the normalization committee. When we took over during the elections, the executive committee under my leadership that was elected, in good faith appointed Mr. Franco Cosmos to be an acting secretary general from normalization committee up to that.
For proper handover, takeover.
For proper handover. So we had a executive committee where the acting SG was then considered to take over as acting first, and then the appointment. And you remember, the president, in terms of the constitution, was the only one to nominate
3 names.
The name of the SG.
Yes.
For endorsement by the executive.
Yes.
I already then had reservation as a president in terms of the capability.
Okay.
But then I said, in terms of our policy of transparency, let the position be advertised, which was the first for Namibian football.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Then we had a lot of good candidates applying. But the SG sitting in the office, seeing this competition coming, it did not sit well with him to be competing against
these people.
And when we had the executive committee meeting, where we had to make the final recommendations, he effectively used the vice president to lobby for my recommendation to be vetoed. And that's where the fight or the differences came through.
But in the first place, when the current CAF Secretary General, then he was at FIFA, responsible for member associations. It was the Caribbean and Africa. When he came here at the press conference, and I still have that audio, I wanted to bring it, I just forgot it. When we had an interview with him at Avani, which is now Avani Hotel, he strictly said, these members of the normalization committee cannot either contest for a role in the upcoming elections when they are done with restructuring NFA. They cannot contest for a role, nor can they be appointed in any position within the NFA.
Yes.
Now, why did your executive and you as the president then override that FIFA ruling?
We did not override the FIFA ruling. We applied the FIFA ruling, but for transition, we said let him act.
Yes.
It's not appointed.
Yeah.
And as I told you, the position was advertised.
Okay.
We got very good candidates. Very good competitive candidates.
But the fact that he was allowed to apply, does it not override the FIFA?
It was out of transparency. And I'm admitting that during that particular period, my recommendation was not for the SG.
For the SG, okay.
So that we bring in new people and whatever. And that did not sit well with the dark forces that are controlling football.
And then, during the interviews of the SG position, I think the first one was for the technical director on the day. I'm not so sure, because I was following the list. In fact, I got some information. You enlisted a company, an HR company, to help you run, as NFA, to help you run the interview process. So the various positions that we advertised: coaches for the national team,
it's the national team head coach,
the women's national team head coach, the technical director, TD, the SG position.
Yes.
So the first, I think that the first two interviews or so, it was maybe, I'm not so sure, I stand to be corrected, I think it was the national coaches. And Franco Cosmos sat in those interviews as part of the interviewing panel. And then the next interview, Franco Cosmos comes in and sits this side of the chair now as being the person being interviewed.
Yes.
Wasn't that, I mean, you are talking about transparency. How transparent was that?
You remember, we enlisted various independent members of the panel for the various positions that were advertised. From technical director,
the coaches,
finance,
finance and IT,
and many others. It was impossible for Franco Cosmos as an acting Secretary General not to sit in any of those committees. Remember, the EXCO
was represented by him.
And the EXCO took a decision to adopt a structure. They came up with this thing of the TD and the
national
various
coaches.
National coaches, as well as
the finance and IT.
The finance and IT, and in terms of the structure that was approved both by FIFA and by the EXCO, or approved by the EXCO, and we shared the cost
with
FIFA. But this structure was already adopted by the normalization committee.
So that structure then allowed him to sit on both sides of the chair?
On both sides of the chair, but he did not sit on both sides of the chair for his specific position as Secretary General, which he have applied for.
Yeah, definitely. But for me, if I sit here with you and then we interview certain people, and then the next moment I am interviewing you, it will sway the scales. It's in human nature.
Yeah, you might see it in such a way, but you must also realize that the number of the interview panels was in such a way that the votes and the recommendations could not be controlled by one person.
One person, okay. All right.
We had people from the media. We had people from the financial services sector. We had certain professionals that were coming in, that were not sitting, and for that matter, all the other positions were recommended and appointed without any problems. Why only the SG? You ask yourself those questions. That's where politics comes to play. And remember, the EXCO also had the minority representation, including myself as president,
On the
interview panel. So the professionals and people from outside were, for a lack of a better word, controlling in terms of numbers of making a recommendation.
But still, there are issues in that appointment.
Yes.
Interesting. Now we move on now. Then all this thing happens, and FIFA comes in with a second normalization committee. But during that time also, there were other accusations, like you mentioned earlier on, about the tenders where they said you benefited. I also spoke about the computers that were bought. There were complaints I received from the staff, but I never shared them with you or anyone from the staff. They wanted me to write a story about it. The staff had said the computers were bought, but they did not have cameras for them to attend virtual meetings.
It boils down to the charges that I made against the SG of Rango Cosmos. The company that was appointed to buy those computers, the budget that was allocated, the decisions to procure that 2.3 million tender was never approved by the EXCO. Never approved by me.
It went through his office, or it went through the SG's office?
It went through the SG's office. I don't recall what year it was, but it was around November, December, where we had an EXCO, where these things were not even reported. So I picked it up that such an appointment was done, which was never endorsed by the EXCO. How did it come?
And it never went to tender?
It never went to tender. And it was above the limits, or the what you call
the threshold,
authorization threshold that were approved
for authorization.
For authorization by the EXCO. It was over 500,000. It was an issue of codes. And I have it on record proof that I said PC Sender, which was for free, supplying the IT services for free, must not participate in any procurement or benefit any procurement.
Why?
Because I'm a shareholder and I'm a director, and it was paid by FIFA under the FIFA Forward program.
Oh, okay. Yes,
and
I remember that.
I sent to the office of the MA, the director of operations from FIFA that was standing there, that I've given instructions that PC Sender will never participate in that. A company, I think a CC, was given that particular tender, which never delivered that equipment.
So none of your companies were involved?
None at all.
But now the accusations come and say that you benefited.
That's the politics of football. I never benefited anything. In fact, I give them, or the company gave them those services for free. And it was even proven in court.
But now how does that sit with you, knowing that if you were not at NFA, you could have got that business and you know, strengthened your position as a businessman, and now all these accusations are coming? How does that sit with you?
That's the unfortunate part. The good thing that you will never hear being said, as president, I, over a period of 2 years, had to benefit for $50,000 per annum
From
as a benefit from FIFA or from CAF, sorry,
yes.
to the NFA president. I said that money must go to NFA to be strictly applied to develop women football. I've never received any of those. So that money came, it was not even used for women football.
What was it used for?
I don't know.
Hey.
So, but these are the type of things that I'm saying. There are those who want to live off football or to benefit from football. And as a businessman, and I'm saying this with all due respect, the money or the accusations to buy laptops and whatever, it's for what I will term myself as a businessman. It's petty. It's petty money. It's very little to make any such accusations.
It's not money that you would go after.
No.
2.3 million.
It's 2.3 million to buy equipment. How much goes for the actual equipment? How much markup do you put? PC Sender is the license supplier of all Apple products in Namibia. But you are restricted by Apple. Your markup cannot be more than 3%, between 3 and 5% on any products that you are selling. That's why you will see a iPad or a iPhone or a computer, a PC. When you look at their prices internationally, they are marked in US dollars.
And when you
And they are
convert,
all the same all over the world. It just depends on the country where you are buying it from in terms of your
exchange rate.
rate. So you cannot like put in a markup of 15% because that product, you will not be allowed to sell it above that market price.
Well, to some positive news now. I think we've spoken about bad news for a long time.
Yeah.
What do you think were your achievements at NFA? Which you say, I'm proud I did this, I'm proud we did this as an executive committee, and some of it you are still seeing now, you know, the spin-offs of it you still see now.
I have to be very honest. Yes, we brought in the issue of transparency, accountability. But the negative part is you enter into discussions to take a specific decisions. Even before you take that decision, through Yahoo mails, through Gmails, through non-official modes of communication of the NFA, you find these decisions and all the documentations in the media.
Yeah,
there is no confidentiality.
We used to get them, yes.
There is no confidentiality, there is no accountability, there is no professionalism. But being that as it may, the in and out of Namibian football, and I'm not only referring to NFA, it goes up to club level, brings about that the administration have to be very transparent, there should be accountability. And this is a good thing where people have to be held account for the decisions that they are making. And that's probably the good thing. I can only wish the executive committee or the council now all the best of luck in administering football. It's a chapter that I have closed in terms of my participation. I can never say I am completely done with football. Football runs in my.
I was about to ask you that.
Football runs in
your blood.
In my blood, in my veins. But it was just time to let others lead.
Would you consider maybe owning your own club or getting on board on one of the clubs that currently exist, or even going back to NFA or NPFL in one position or the other at any given time?
I get still to date, I get requests to buy football boots for upcoming players. I get requests to help a club like 11 Arrows. But because of my involvement in Black Africa and having separated that, you will probably not see me going back into club ownership. I'm not talking about Black Africa only, any other club. But to say I'm not going to help with the development of football or talented players or whatever.
A coach or a ref or something.
Yeah, no, not referees, not coaches, but in terms of development of specific talent for the benefit of football. That I will consider, but not directly as a individual, because sometimes it's misconstrued as bribe by the very same people who are coming to beg for help. But through one of the companies that I'm involved in, I will give a word and say, this is good for the country, this is good for development of sports or development of football. Yes, I will support such events. But individuals, it becomes really a problem because they come to backstep you.
To backstep, yeah. And in terms of following football, do you still follow the local league? Will we see you at the stadium one day supporting maybe one of the teams, or just watching on a lazy Saturday?
I do watch, not physically at the football games, because football is mainly played in Namibia over weekends. Because of my traveling, farming and other commitments, it becomes very difficult. I'm a member of through pass page, so I do follow football. There are other
channels that you also
that I'm also following. I'm also following English football. I'm following South African football, but Namibian football, yes. And I read papers in the media about football development. Yes, I do follow.
And the national team. What are your take? What are your views on the national team?
I think they are still on a good course, on a good track in terms of development. But we as Namibians are known to be very impatient. We want to see results coming. Of course, nobody wants to just play and spend money and there are no tangible results. But there are a number of things that we have to do to clean our act, and I think the coaches have to be supported, the technical team, the players have to be supported. We'll get there.
And maybe any last words that you would like to share with us when it comes to football and all these questions that we spoke about today?
Yeah, if I may borrow from a phrase they use in cricket, I don't like football, I love football. And I think that will continue because football is the #1 sport in the country. I do agree with your sentiments. It just needs all our support. But please, leaders such as ourselves who have been in football and those that are still in football have to give a chance for new blood to come in and lead football. And those that are taking over football needs all the support from everybody. Let us not sabotage one another. And only through that can we grow together.
Mr. Haikali, thank you very much for taking so much time of your time. One thing I forgot to tell you guys is that Mr. Haikali is a fitness guru. He's very much into fitness, as you can see. I mean, I'm even ashamed because my kapunda is bigger than his. But yeah, he's an inspiring figure. He's a businessman. I think you heard his story, where he started from, the liberation struggle and his business, workers' union, all his way into football, the laws and the downs of football. And that is still, one thing I'm glad about is that you still follow football and you're still passionate about it. And I hope that chapter proves to be a lesson to you and you use it to move forward and teach other young and upcoming football administrators. Thank you very much for joining us.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today. We shall be back again with another episode of Game Time with Marco, and we keep trying to bring all the football figures that we can get and try and learn from these football figures that you bring here. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you.
Q.
How many hours?
1 hour and 34 minutes.
Sure.
It's a lot of money.
Podcasting,
yeah, his podcasting is...